Good morning, guys. Welcome to another episode of the Urban Garden 2020. Before we get started, I just wanted to tell you guys, hit the like button, thumbs up, subscribe, help spread the channel, and I'm going to be trying to get some more content out there on a regular basis. So basically what I'm thinking is every other Sunday, I'm going to try to upload starting this Sunday. And then during the week, either a Tuesday or Thursday, I'm going to try to upload a video. So every other Sunday, and then Tuesday or Thursday during the week, I'm going to try to upload. So be on the lookout for new videos. Subscribe, like, share the videos, and help me spread the page. So today I wanted to talk a little about nutrients. And let me get a sip of coffee. Trying to get up and going. A little morning Joe. So, there are basically two types of nutrients, and one is organic and the other is inorganic. Pretty simple, right? So, you have your water-soluble nutrients, basically liquid nutes. You have your granule nutrients, and then you have your more organic types of nutrients that are like used for top dressing and whatnot. So I wanted to go through, show you guys what they look like, what the differences are, if any, and what I use. So the first thing, let's just start with what you'll get at your garden centers, Walmart, basically any big box store you go to, even some of your local co-ops and hardware stores will have these. And this right here is Miracle-Gro. This is the Shake and Feed tomato, fruit, and vegetable plant food. So it says it feeds for 3 months. And most of this, even the Miracle-Gro granule, says it's organic. And so what they're meaning is whether they derive the nutrients that are locked into these granules that are absorbed into soil. And this is, it says it contains microbes. It's derived from kelp, worm castings, feather meal, and bone meal, which are all very good organic nutrients. But a lot of these fertilizers that are granule aren't necessarily organic. And I'll show you guys something else. Oh, let me adjust this camera. Sorry about that. That didn't work. But so this is a granule type nutrient fertilizer, and if you read, it gives some directions for use, how to use it, where to use it, the type of plant it will fertilize, and how much to use. So pretty simple. The granules just slowly break down as you water, and you're going to see this available for all types of plants and garden applications. Also on your lawn, you can take and put it in a spreader. So I'll show you what this looks like. And basically, it's just little grains. So they're just small little granules, and you sprinkle them out or spread them out. You can put them in a spreader and spread them across your yard, and they break down as it rains or you water. So let me adjust this camera. I was going to go out biking this morning, but the weather's not cooperating, so let's make a video, right? So another type of inorganic or synthetic nutrients that is available from Miracle-Gro. You'll see these all over the place, these little boxes of nutrients, and basically it's just a powder form. This one's not really powder anymore. It's kind of, well, anyway, it's usually a powder that looks like, basically like sugar, granule sugar. And my phone is not cooperating either. This is just one of those days. So you basically take a scoop like this. It has a 2 tablespoon and 1 teaspoon or quarter tablespoon little spoons here. So you scoop it out. It has directions on the back how much to mix in a gallon, and you pour it in. And this right here, it has and it says it's for a certain type of plant. Basically, they adjust the NPK levels that are supposedly specific to certain plants. And to an extent, yeah, but basically the plants are going to uptake what they want to uptake if your pH is correct. So, anywho, this right here helps acid-loving plants thrive. So, I've compared the ingredients of this azalea, camellia, rhododendron plant food to the tomato, veg, and vegetable and garden variety, and then to the regular. And there isn't a lot of difference. I mean, just a few small things, but maybe it promotes lowering the pH or raising the acidity of the soil. I'm not sure, but anyway, you scoop in, you pull out the stuff that looks like a blue or purplish powdered sugar, and you dump it in your gallon of water, stir it, and there you go. Bob's your uncle, and you have liquid fertilizer. So, another fertilizer you commonly have are liquid nutrients, and they're usually full synthetic, and some of them claim to be organic, and they may be derived from, like I said earlier, kelp meal, earthworm castings and whatnot. And basically, you just unscrew this. You can either use a little dropper or, again, tablespoon, pour it in, mix it in your water, and there you go. You've got fertilizer. So obviously I had all three of those, and I use them fairly regularly. They're pretty simple. The Miracle Grow, the powder or granule that breaks down, the water-soluble one, is pretty simple. The granule fertilizer like this, it's pretty simple. You just sprinkle some out, and I'll grab a little cup, put some in it, and go sprinkle on my potted plants. And the last fertilizer is an organic fertilizer. And here's another one, tomato, vegetable, and herb. And this right here is definitely, it says on it, organic and natural. So handcrafted blend, it benefits the soil and microbes. It promotes heavy root development and vigorous crop growth. So all these, a couple of them say they have microbes or promote microbial growth. Definitely that's good for your roots, helps them spread, helps the soil break down matter so the plants can uptake it. But this right here, it has your same NPK. This right here is very easily read. So 4% nitrogen, 6% phosphate, 3% potash. It also has calcium, and then a whole lot of other mycorrhiza ingredients. A lot of stuff I can't pronounce or I don't want to attempt. And it's derived from fishbone meal, feather meal, alfalfa meal, potassium sulfate, fish meal, kelp meal, rock phosphate, and kelp flour. So this right here is definitely another one that's very organic. And I'll show you what it looks like. Set that to the side. And it looks like kind of a, well, it looks almost like dirt. So it's very organic. It looks like if you took some alfalfa pellets or some of your vitamins and crushed them up, that this is what it would look like. So it's kind of looks like some kind of dirt almost. It's got some other larger amounts in it. And this bag actually it's a little more coarse. Usually it's a little finer ground than this. So what are the differences in the different types of nutrients that we just looked at? Because they're all very popular. They're all used for at-home gardening, indoors and outdoors. And so what's the difference? Well, technically, if you're looking at the nutrient, your macronutrients, your NPK, and your micronutrients, what are the differences? Nothing. Your nitrogen molecules, you can take a nitrogen molecule from all four of these fertilizers, you can take them to a lab, and the lab's not going to be able to differentiate this nitrogen from the liquid nutrients, the water-soluble granule nutrients, the coarse grain granules from Miracle Grow or the Dr. Earth all natural nutrients. Just they're not going to be able to tell the difference because a nitrogen molecule is a nitrogen molecule. There's nothing special about any of the three that sets it apart, or any of the four that sets it apart from the others. Same thing with your potassium and your phosphate. All the molecules are the same. So, what are the benefits of growing with organic nutrients like this versus a synthetic nutrients like this? Well, or the Miracle Grow. Well, a lot of it's to do with your growing medium, obviously. If you're growing hydroponically, you're definitely not going to be able to use something like this. You pour this in your water and then you've got a mess, and your filtration system's jacked, your water circulation system's jacked up, because this right here doesn't just dissolve into water. So, probably something similar with this. It's going to slowly release and your plants are going to starve. So, if you're growing in coca coir or some type of inert medium, that's variable. You could use any of those nutrients with coca coir, obviously. Same thing with soil. You could use any of these with soil. Now, the main difference is a water-soluble nutrient like this, or the Miracle Grow like this. When you pour it in, it's immediately available to the plants. That's the big difference between these. The water solubles, you mix in the water and you pour in. You don't want a whole lot of runoff because your fertilizer's just running out, but you do. I'm just going to take like this. I'm going to sprinkle on the fern over here while we're talking, because I was going to water and stuff, give them a little nutrients yesterday. There we go. Make use of it. Put it in the fern here that's above me. She's been inside, but we're about ready to take her out and let her grow a little outside because she is way overgrown for in here. Okay, so back to what we're saying. Got sidetracked there just a little bit. Okay, so those liquid nutrients are going to be readily available to the plant. So the plant can immediately uptake them. So good news is if your plants are needing nutrients right then, they're available, right? So, it's pretty simple. Plant's hungry, you feed it. Done. Now, there are some drawbacks. Of course, there's always good and bad with everything, right? I mean, it's not just like if something were all good, we would all use it right, and there wouldn't be anything else. But there are benefits and deficiencies in every one. There are risks and rewards. So the liquid nutrients are immediately, the synthetics that you mix into water, the water-soluble nutrients are immediately available to the plant's roots. They can uptake them and the plant can use them right away. So good, the plant can take them up immediately. So if you have a nutrient deficiency starting in your plants, let's say your tomatoes, your corn, whatever you have, if they need food, you can feed them very quickly with the liquid nutrients. So what about the organic nutrients, the one we looked at, the granule, or the one that looks more like dirt? Well, those commonly in container plants or in the yard are either sprinkled out or top dressed. So you put it on top of the soil, maybe mix it in a little bit, and then the soil breaks down those nutrients. And the microbes in the soil actually break it down and make it available for the plants to uptake. So they take this very large chain of molecules and they break them apart, and the plant can then uptake them into the root system and distribute them through the plant. So that takes a little time. Well, yes, it's going to take like a couple of weeks usually for one of these to break down. This right here says it feeds for 3 months. So does that mean it goes into the soil and is available to the plant for 3 months? No, it breaks down over 3 months and slowly releases as it breaks down. Now, another type of fertilizing that I use outside, and I don't have a bag of compost or mulch in here, but I do compost and mulch outside, and especially around some of my plants and trees. I'll in the fall I'll compost around them, put mulch around them. That mulch breaks down over like the year, and it basically turns to food and it feeds your plant. So that's another way, and it's very organic. Uh, Again, it's very slow release. It takes like all year for that to break down, and slowly is available to your plant as it breaks down. So you compost yearly, and that just keeps building up the soil. So same thing with our Dr. Earth here, this homegrown, natural. It breaks down over time. It usually takes about a week and a half, 2 weeks, for that to break down in the soil. So when it says it's promotes microbes, or you can buy bags of mycorrhiza, and I've done that and put my tomato plants and whatnot. And those microbes are what are breaking down your nutrients and making them available to the plant. So again, there's no difference between the nitrogen molecule in the synthetic versus the nitrogen molecule in the organic. So we went over some of the rewards and some of the drawbacks. One's immediately available, the other one's slowly available. One feeds very quickly one time, the other feeds a little slower. So these liquid nutrients, you're going to have to mix them in water. They're very concentrated usually, and you will take and feed them on a fairly regular schedule. The organic nutrients that you're top dressing with that are taking longer to break down, you can spread your feeding out a little bit. So depends on how much you want to be working on mixing stuff. Liquid nutrients are obviously pretty easy. You take a certain amount, put it in your water, stir it, and you go. Sometimes you pH it, like the tomatoes, your azaleas, your rhododendrons. A lot of those plants are blueberries. They're acid-loving plants. So I try to use things that will raise the acidity or lower the pH of the water or soil, and that just helps them grow. How does it help them grow? Well, plants take up nutrients at a certain pH. Usually your acid-loving plants are going to like pHs around the low to mid sixes, sometimes high sixes or upper fives, but generally 6 to 6.5 on your pH is fine. Your more alkaline loving plants are going to like something around 7-ish. So my tap water runs about 7.5. So for my outdoor plants, I usually don't mess with it too much. I do take coffee grounds and put around my azaleas and blueberries and the acid-loving plants, because the coffee grounds are a little more acidic, and as they break down, it just raises the acidity or lowers the pH of the soil a little bit. So not very much. I mean, I don't even know if it has an effect on the soil, but in theory, that's what it would do. And it's recycling your coffee grounds, so that's good, right? So what are some other benefits to your organics versus the synthetics? So your synthetics are immediately available. Your organics break down slowly over time. So usually what you will have is your organics, your plants are going to take up from the organics what they want to take up. Your synthetics, the plant's just being fed, just almost force fed. So if you mix your synthetics too strong, you can burn your plants, you can burn the roots, it can show in the leaves, it can actually harm your production. So you have to be careful with synthetics. They're a little more volatile, and they can, if you're inexperienced, you can burn your plants, you can kill your plants, especially seedlings. When I do starter trays, usually I just take pre-amended soil and start everything out in the pre-amended soil, and I don't add any nutrients, really very little to speak of. I do use Neptune's Harvest tomato and veg, or the fish emulsion fertilizer, because those are pretty low in your nutrients. They are water soluble, but they generally don't burn your plants versus a synthetic like this over here. So what are some other benefits and detractions? Well, one thing, your synthetics, they go, they feed, and they run out, basically. There is a little buildup in your medium, so if you're using coco coir or soil, it can build up a little bit so you can get some higher concentrations in your soil. So you kind of have to keep an eye on that. In containers where you're just feeding every so often, you want to use a little as large a container as you can, obviously, but or as you need. Certain plants have a certain root growth base, and the bigger the base, the bigger your plant can grow, and the more output generally you're going to get. So what do and I'm sorry about this, I don't know why this camera and this setup's just not working for me today. I have a stand, but this right here was comfortable, and I was sitting here drinking my coffee. So, all right. So, what are some benefits of the organics? Well, this very little. It's going to break down and just be taken up by the plants. And if there are microbes available in this, they will be taken up by the plant or used by the soil. And kind of just had a crazy thought there, but no, the microbes can be released into the soil. They'll help break down the nutrients, and there you go. If you're in coco coir, really, I don't grow in cocoa. I don't do hydroponics. I've tried some deep water cultures, put some tomato plants in there, put some other plants in. They just all died, so it was not pretty. And I'm like, well, I'm not really committed to this process. I like soil. I like the microbes, the living part of the soil, and that is as much into gardening as learning about your plants, learning about soil. So I like organics, but I do quick feeds with synthetics. So what do your organics like the Dr. Earth add to the soil? Well, they add one thing that the synthetics and the granules won't, and that is organic material. So your synthetics are just adding synthetic nutrients, the basics of nitrogen, potassium, I had a brain fart, but they're just adding the basic nutrients, the molecules of the nutrients available for the plant. So your organic material, like the Dr. Earth there, is adding organic material to the soil. So it enriches the soil, builds up your soil. It feeds the microbes. Now, there's some controversy about synthetics killing microbes and raising your salt levels in the soil. And salts it's a very complicated topic. The salts in the liquid nutrients and how they break down. And I'll be honest, I use both. I mean, if I see a deficiency, if I see like my plants are really hungry and I've missed feeding or I'm a little late, and all plants are different, and I grow a wide variety of vegetables, garden plants, and everything. So, and even your plants like your tomatoes, you've got cherry tomatoes, I've got German queens outside right now in containers. I've got Better Boys and a couple of other beefsteak tomato plants, and all your plants are going to be different. Each individual plant is going to be different, and then each type of plant, each your different genetics of tomatoes, of squash, all that's going to be a little different. Now they all do share certain characteristics. Your tomatoes are all more acid loving, just like your azaleas and your rhododendrons and whatnot. So there are certain things you can plan on doing, but you have to keep an eye out on your plants. And if you see that they need something, you try to decipher what that is, what your plant's telling you. And if you read your plants correctly, you're able to correct it very easily. If you don't read them correctly, or you're unable to read what they need, you may have some trial and error. You may damage your plants and set them back, possibly kill your plants, and you can harm them. The organic nutrients seem to be, you have a little more room for error. You can overfeed a little bit, you can underfeed just a little bit. You're not going to mess things up. And I do keep some liquid nutrients around, not a lot, but just enough so if I see, I keep CalMag, I keep a couple of different grow and bloom fertilizers. So I can mix, I know what's in them. I have some specific liquid fertilizers that contain just certain nutrients, and if I see a common deficiency, I try to diagnose those and have things on hand to remedy them. So, keep some Epsom salt and whatnot, and a little will go a long way there, so be careful. But, no, yeah, your organics are going to add organic material to the soil. They're going to add a carbon material to your soil. So if you're working in a living soil, I prefer to go organic as much as possible. Now, like I said, I will feed in some liquid nutrients when I see deficiencies, but I tend to use both, and I haven't seen that using a little bit of the synthetics harms the microbes. Now, I could be totally wrong, or maybe it just hasn't, I don't use enough of them to affect it, but the synthetics don't harm the microbes from what I see. And I don't, if I went in and just constantly fed the synthetics in a living soil, maybe it would have a little harsher effect, but I do primarily use the organics, like the Dr. Earth, and I top dress with it. And I do use like a mulch. I use a straw mulch that I put over the planters outside, and in my raised bed I have a straw bed over top of it with some leaves mixed in, and that'll break down. I'll just dig out around and put my plants in there, but and that breaks down and feeds the soil too. So is there one type of nutrients that are better than another? Well, if you're in hydroponics or some kind of deep water culture or something along that line, then yeah, you're going to be synthetics all the way. If you're in coco coir or soil, you could go either way. I mean, coco coir, I don't know if you're getting the benefit of the microbes. They're just, cocoa's kind of inert, similar to peat moss, I think. Peat moss is a pretty sterile type of medium, and coco coir can be, if you get the right coco coir that's been washed correctly. Coco coir, because the coconuts come from the coastal areas usually, they do tend to have some salt buildup on them, and if you don't get good coco coir that's been washed, yeah, you could bring some salt in and have some pretty high salt levels in your medium to start with. So there are some risks there. So for soil, I use a lot of different type soils. I do try to get very organically rich, carbon rich soils. I'll bring in a wide variety. I don't just have one that I use. And yeah, I'll use Ocean's Forest from Fox Farm. I also use their Strawberry Fields. I have not used their Happy Frog or the Lightfoot, whatever it is. I tend to I like all the organic stuff that's in the Ocean's Forest and Strawberry Fields. I mean, they've got bat guano and all different types of nutrients that just aren't in a lot of your other soils that I get at the box store. So I do use some black cow compost. That's a favorite of mine. Basically it's a cow manure compost that's been composted and broken down, mixed in with some other compost, obviously, and usually like forest compost, and it's broken down so it's not hot anymore. If you use straight cow manure, you're going to burn the crap out of your plants. And but from what I've seen, I've had very good luck with it. And I'll also use just some Miracle Grow, the organics. It's in a black bag for Miracle Grow. It's a pretty good base soil. I'll add some perlite in there for my containers just to allow the roots to grow through. I'll take some peat moss, or I bought coco coir and mixed in. And coco coir, for people that don't know, are just ground up coconut husk. So we're recycling the coconut husk. So, another good thing. But I bought one brick. It's like this big vacuum sealed thing of coco coir, and mixed it in with my soil just to give it kind of like the peat moss, just to kind of give it a little better water retention, a little better drainage, and just help the soil be a little more light and airy, a little more loamy or whatever, so that the roots can move through a little easier. But the Miracle Grow organics, and outside I'll buy the Miracle Grow, or there's another one It's something garden. I can't remember the name of it, but anywho, I'll get their garden soil, just the big bags that are like $6-7 for this. I don't know how much, a 90-pound bag, whatever it is, 50-pound bag. But it's pretty cheap, but it doesn't contain a lot, and usually the organic material in it isn't broken down very well. So I'll just add it to the garden, to my raised bed occasionally. I'll put a bag in every year. And then that breaks down and feeds, the raised bed. So why should I use nutrients if I have soil that's pre-amended? Well, if you're planting in containers, your plants are going to use up that nutrients eventually. Now, a very good pre-amended soil, like your ocean's forest, which people say it's hot and it can burn your plants. I haven't really had much issue with that, but I do mix it in with the Miracle-Gro, so it kind of probably evens it out a little bit. Especially for my seed starters, I'll take a little bit of ocean's forest, a little bit of strawberry fields, a little bit of the Miracle-Gro, and then some peat moss or that Jiffy starter mix, and just mix it all together in a 5-gallon bucket. Put it in my seed tray and put my seeds in. And I haven't had a problem to date with seeds. Matter of fact, last year I did that, and my sunflowers just had tons of sunflowers. And if you've seen my Instagram page or have watched many of the videos, you'll see that. And so, yeah, I just do that, and I don't have a problem with burning my plants. But I use a wide variety of soil bases to mix from. And I will take the Dr. Earth and amend that soil a little bit. I'll sprinkle just a little bit to get that organic material in there. I bought the mycorrhiza just to see what it does, and I'll sprinkle some of it in, have it in my wheelbarrow setting all winter. I'll also take my coffee grounds, my ground up shrimp tails and stuff when I go out to eat. I'll bring them back and I just put them in the blender, my little chop thing, and turns it into a powder, and I just sprinkle them over, and there we go. So yeah, I like soil. I like using primarily the organic nutrients and top dress with those, but if I see a deficiency or I think I've missed a little bit on my schedule, like I was a little late getting the feed because of work or whatever, I may go on and give them a little liquid nutrients just to get them through. Now I also use, I have the bees, and one thing that microbes feed on is they use the sugars to break down things. So if you've seen videos where people say they use honey or molasses in their waterings occasionally, that doesn't give your plants anything really. I mean, yeah, there are some small micronutrients in there that your plants could uptake, but in general, the sugars, the carbohydrates in there do nothing for your plants. What they do what they do is they feed your microbes, and the microbes use those and break down all the other stuff so your plants can use them. So I do take a little bit of the honey, and I bought a gallon of molasses last year, year before last. I still have it, and I'll just put just a little bit in my water every now and then when I'm watering the containers. And haven't had any issues with it. And so if you don't have an issue with it, I have seen that it has helped with my the plants. I think it's helped with the microbes breaking down the nutrients faster. So the plants tend to like it, so I go with it. If I don't see any difference in something, I quit using it, but that I think I've seen, from what I can tell, a benefit. So in containers, definitely you want to amend, because plants are going to use up what's in there, and then there's going to be nothing left for them to grow. So especially if you got a tomato plant that's this big and you put it in a container, and then it grows up to a big plant, 4 foot tall, 5 foot, whatever, if you're in a container, it's going to use up the nutrients in there. And then when it comes time to start putting on tomatoes, they're really going to have a lackluster harvest. They're not going to just put out, this bumper crop of tomatoes. Why? Because they've used up a lot of the nutrients in the soil, especially the nutrients that they need. Maybe not all of the nutrients, but the ones that they need, they've taken out of the soil. So you want to amend for that. And so when I go out, I've got a very organic, enriched soil, amended soil. So for the first few weeks, all I do is water. 3, 4 weeks in, the plants are getting up pretty good. And then I'll slowly start adding my nutrients in. I'll top dress a little bit here or there. Or if I see something, I'm a little concerned about, I may add some liquid nutrients in there, some synthetics. So for my raised bed, I pre-amend the raised bed with some organic material like this organic fertilizer. I'll sprinkle some of this out through the year. I put some out yesterday, like a big cup. I think it's like a quart maybe, or pint. Anyway, I put a little bit out. I pre-amended one of my flower beds with some fertilizer, and I just sprinkled it out there. It'll dissolve. It's going to rain today, so that'll hit. I've got two big these big totes. One used to use as a laundry tote. I composted in it till it got full, and then I started mixing some other things in. And this year I think I'm going to put a tomato plant in it, because last year I threw some old tomatoes, just some pieces of tomatoes, some ends that I didn't eat in there. I think it was tomatoes, or was it peppers? I threw some scraps in there to compost, and all of a sudden I just have this huge plant growing, and I'm like, this right here, I thought it would be way too hot for it and just burn it up, but it's been there for 2 years, maybe 3. So most everything's probably broken down pretty well. So probably won't have to amend it very much, and I may put a tomato or pepper in there and just see what it does. I've got 2 of them, so we'll see what they do. So for your raised beds, if you're planning outside gardening, you can pre-amend a little bit in the spring, or whatever, but for the most part, your soil outdoors, your leaf matter that breaks down, sticks and things that fall, you're going to have nutrients there. So there isn't a great need to amend the soil or fertilize the soil like you would a container plant. It doesn't hurt to put a little bit out there every once in a while just to keep the nutrients in the soil, but there are earthworms and all kinds of little critters and bugs out there that are doing a lot of work for you. So if you have good soil that has a decent pH, you can have it tested, or I have this little soil meter that you stick in the ground, and it tells you the approximate pH of the soil. And that's all you need for outdoor growing. If you have a garden area or a raised bed, you may, if the soil's junk, do you want to amend a whole big area? Or you can start with raised beds and start getting some soil from the garden center a little bit, which can be expensive. But I take my raised beds, and throughout the year, especially going into fall, I take a lot of, because I get a lot of leaves on the ground with the grass that's growing, and I'll take and put my lawnmower on mulch, take the bag and dump the bags over in there, or I'll dump them in a compost bin and let them break down and then put them in. So, I'm getting a little bit of material broken down in there. So that's one way you can start building your compost, your raised beds with compost, is start dumping it in. Now, you don't want to do that right when you're putting your plants in, especially if it's in the spring and you've got a lot of grass. I know this from experience, if you dump a lot of grass matter in, that grass is going to heat up and it's going to burn your plants, literally. That if you put just a big pile of mulched up grass on your plants, you're going to burn them. So it literally, physically starts the heat process of composting. And I had this big pile of mulched up grass, and I put it there, and I went to move it because I was going to sprinkle it around some plants, and it was like probably well over 100 degrees. I mean, it was probably 85, 90 outside, and when I stuck my hands in it, it was hot. Like, it was warm. It didn't burn me, but it was like noticeably hot, and you put that on your plants, and you could burn them. Now, I do use stuff like that around the crepe myrtles, like a lot of leaf matter in the fall. I'll take in late summer here, which is like September, is late summer, October. Some places are getting snow around then. We're still cutting grass in Alabama. So, I'll take that leaf and lawn matter, put it around my azaleas, my crepe myrtles, a lot of my plants, and boom, there you go. You've mulched them. It's going to feed them through the winter. It's going to help protect them if there is a freeze, which does occasionally happen here. But back to nutrients. And the compost is a nutrient, so just remember that. When you compost around your trees, bushes, plants that are perennials, and your bulb plants, you mulch over them, you're feeding them. That material breaks down and enriches the soil. So it's very similar to like this organic Dr. Earth. This right here is going to break down slowly over time, but it doesn't add organic or carbon material into the soil. Your liquid nutrients adds no organic material to the soil. Your powdered or granule nutrients like this adds little or no organic material to the soil. So it depends on what route of your growing medium. If you're in a garden, you could use any of them. If you're in a raised bed, you can use any of them. If you're in planters and coco coir or soil, you can use any of them. If you're growing in hydroponics, you're a little more limited. But most people around here, I don't know anybody. I know one person that has this greenhouse set up, or they used to, down in Tuscaloosa, and they had this hydroponic-like setup with all these PVC pipes, and they were cut, and they had tomatoes, the roots growing through the PVC, and they watered the system or fertilized the system every once in a while, and that's how they grew their tomatoes. And they were growing them in this greenhouse, all year round. They would just constantly had tomatoes. And some people say the taste of your fruits, flowers, vegetables, everything is you can tell a difference, and possibly so, because everybody says garden vegetables have a much stronger, better taste than store-bought vegetables, and probably because a lot of your store-bought vegetables come from larger production gardens and farms, and they use a lot of liquid nutrients. They'll take one of those big container totes of that you see, the cages with the plastic liner on the inside. It's got like 300 to 600 gallons, and farmers will have that with fertilizer in it and take that and mix that into their watering systems to water their plants. So, or they'll take a lot of synthetic nutrients and go through and fertilize with those, because generally they're a little cheaper that way. You can buy in bulk, and they're a little easier to handle. So, and you can get them concentrated, dilute them down, and feed, and it feeds a very large area. And you can do it, it's a lot quicker. And your organic nutrients takes a little more time, and even though you don't have to worry about burning your plants, they don't really care, because they're just growing for yields. And you can't blame them. But here at home, I'm growing for quality. I'm a boutique farmer per se. I want unique plants. I want great tasting plants and vegetables. I want pretty flowers. I want something that just pops. I do a lot of bulbs. I love the dragon snaps, the gladiolas, lilies, daffodils. I bought some seeds. I can't even remember what kind of plants they are. They're supposed to be perennials, but we'll see. But yeah, I'm a boutique kind of farmer and gardener. So, it will be what it will be. I try, like I said, I use the synthetics and the organics. I haven't seen any detriment to my soil, but I don't just use heavy synthetics all the time. I use them when I need to use them, or when I have to use them. And things like CalMag with iron, those generally are not going to burn your plants, because they're micronutrients, and that plant's going to uptake what it wants to uptake. You just don't want to pour straight CalMag onto your tomatoes. And another thing, people blame nutrients for different things on their plants, just like deficiencies. So they say, oh, well, you have blossom end right, you need CalMag. Well, not necessarily. Or you're having your tomatoes are splitting on the ends, or your peppers are busting open, and you need CalMag. Well, look at your watering. Look at, if you're just relying on rain, you can definitely have some damage to your tomatoes and peppers if you only rely on the rain, because what happens usually is just like the synthetic nutrients, it's readily available for the plant. So if the plant's thirsty and it hasn't been watered in a little while, if it rains, it's going to take up all that water and distribute it throughout the plant because it's trying to rehydrate. And it's going to fill up those tomatoes. And if they've kind of constricted and that skin is tightened down, and then all of a sudden it fills it with water, what happens? The tomato skin busts. And where does it bust? Sometimes on the side, sometimes on the end, and it looks like a blossom end rot starting where the blossom is hanging on. So, just try to diagnose what the problem is, what the cause is, before you just start throwing nutrients on it, because you can damage your plants more, or you can waste money and just be putting fertilizer out there that you don't need. So I try to use some broad spectrum fertilizers. Like this right here, the Dr. Earth is 463. This right here, if I can see, it's a little darker in here. Let's see, total nitrogen. It's like 10, 5, 15. So it's pretty strong, but it's a slow release. So you're probably not going to burn your plants if you feed the amounts that you're supposed to. The synthetics are like this Miracle Grow right here is 30, 10, 10. So pretty strong, but you're using, if you feed by their directions, and I usually take synthetics, I usually use half of what they recommend. I mean, regardless. If it says use 2 tablespoons, or 2 of these scoops per gallon, that's at 2 tablespoons, so that would be 4 per gallon. I use 1 per gallon. If it says to use 1 per gallon, I use a half per gallon. So I'm pretty conservative on that, and I don't have any issues, but I don't have any issues burning my plants either. So the Dr. Earth, the organics, I usually feed it right on the money on what they recommend. Maybe just a little less, but because I do amend my soil with it prior to. But yeah, I do feed it pretty much on schedule. This right here, like I said, the one down there, I feed it pretty much on schedule. It is a slow release. So when I put it out, and if I'm using it on my raised bed and I'm just amending the soil, I just take and just scatter it by hand, sprinkle it out, and don't really measure out. If I'm putting it in some large containers like the 2 totes outside, yesterday when I was sprinkling it out on the raised bed, I put it out on those 2 containers. And I did sprinkle some, just a little bit, out on the container plants that I had in the garage from last year. So I do think we lost a couple of pepper plants. No need to fear, I have plenty of seeds, and I'm getting ready. I'm going to get ready today probably to start some seeds, and this weekend, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, probably Sunday, like I said, every other Sunday I'm going to upload a video. But Sunday I'm going to try to upload a video of the seed starters. So, it's about that time of year. You want to work back, depending on what your germination stage is for different plants, and what plants they are, if they like warm weather, cold weather. You want to count back from your last frost date backwards, and you can start your seeds inside. So that's what we're going to do coming up probably this weekend, because I think we're still have a couple more weeks that we could have a frost. But as we march into April, January, February, March into April. I just came up with that in my head. But as we march into April, where our frost dates are starting to, the chances of frost is diminishing. So we're getting very close to the time where we will be putting stuff outside. And like I said, I've got some tomatoes in containers outside, some planters, but I've moved them inside if there's any chance of frost. And other than the peppers and bananas and all that. So, yeah, so that's what we're looking like in the nutrient categories today. What types of nutrients we have, what the differences are, if any. And to the plant, the plant doesn't know a synthetic nitrogen molecule from an organic versus, this granule versus the powdered synthetic. The plant can't tell the difference. A lab can't tell the difference between the molecules, because the molecule's a nitrogen molecule is a nitrogen molecule. I mean, I don't know how else to say that. It just is what it is, dudes. So, but there are differences in what it does to the soil or your medium, or what kind of medium you're growing in. And there are some controversies, like I said, with the salt buildups and all that. Organics usually balance themselves out a little better. You can have buildups that cause your pH to rise or become less acidic or more alkaline, and that can affect your plant's ability to uptake the nutrients. So when I water in containers, usually outside, depending on the container size. If I'm in smaller containers, yeah, I'll use pH water. If I'm in super large containers, like I've got some 35-gallon containers, and those, the two outside and the one in the garage that those pumpkins are in, that I showed you the video of, the compost container, I've got two of those. They're roughly, it's like a 45-gallon drum cut in half, so maybe it's not 35 gallons, maybe it's like, 22 and a half gallons. But yeah, that's a pretty good sized container for a planter, right? So yeah, I don't really worry as much with pH on that. Just like my garden plants outside, if they're thirsty and I have the hose out when I water my lawn, I'll take and water the raised bed, and it doesn't hurt anything, and I haven't had any issues, so that's what I do. And but if I'm watering smaller containers, yeah, I may pH the soil. For the tomatoes, I use the acid loving plant, or the tomato and vegetable. Is supposed to help. I do have some soil conditioner for acid loving plants, because I do have a lot of acid loving vegetables. Your blueberries, the tomatoes. There are a lot of plants that prefer just a slightly acidic soil. And rainwater is generally slightly acidic. I don't know if that's because it's not acid rain, but if pollutants have anything to do with that or not. But in general, rainwater is going to be around 6.5 to 7, so just slightly more acidic than neutral. 7 is a general neutral, and anything above 7 is more alkaline, below 7 is acidic, from what I've gathered. But anyway, that's where we're at today. We're looked at the nutrients, the differences, some of them, not all of them, but just a basic guide and overview of the nutrients. This has been a pretty long video. We're clicking right about 52 minutes now, so I've been talking a lot, and yeah, I will talk a lot sometimes. I don't know if I ramble on, but hopefully this right here was some good information for you. And if you're growing at home in containers, I tried, I bought this LED light, and I'm going to try this fall to grow some tomato plants under it. I tried to start some plants this winter, and I had a massive failure, and part of it was me, and well, it was all me, human error. But I'm going to try to do some more research, and this winter have an indoor garden somewhere, either in the garage or the basement. I haven't decided yet. I'm trying to see which area. Probably the garage, because it's right here, and I don't have to go downstairs and upstairs, and I can have a water a little easier accessible than downstairs. But we'll see. That remains to be seen. But yeah, so, and I'm gonna definitely grow in soil. If I do a little something indoors, I may try to build some mobile raised bed or some giant planter thing inside, because from what I've seen, the more dirt or soil you have, the more margin for error you have on getting everything just right. So your changes, your small changes that you make have little effect. It's like if you pee in the ocean, so what? There are a million whales peeing and pooping in the ocean, but nobody cares. You can pee in the ocean, 2 foot away from somebody, and they don't care. If you're in a swimming pool, the water may turn blue, but in the area, but minute effect. If you're in a bathtub, not a great effect, but I wouldn't want to be in there. I wouldn't want to drink the water. If you're in a toilet bowl, yeah. And if I have this cup half full of water and I pee in it, yeah, it's gonna basically be a cup of urine. Same thing with your soil. If you have a garden area outside, then yeah, your adjustments to it are going to be minute. You're not going to be able to greatly change the pH of a whole garden area, like an acre of land. You till it up or no till, depending on what style of gardening you're doing. But you can put fertilizers out there to help the plants and whatnot. If you are doing a raised bed, which is much smaller, it's like going from, a big swimming pool or the ocean or lake to, a small pool or bathtub. And, you can build that up pretty good and affect it greatly, depending on what you have. Or a small garden spot, you can greatly affect that, depending on how much money you spend, obviously. But, and then if you're in containers, the smaller the container, the more great the effect that you're going to have on it. So, I'm going to try to do larger containers if we're inside. That way, I don't screw up things like I did this winter, and just kill everything. But, hopefully I have a little better luck next year. But as far as this year, we're getting into the gardening season for outdoors. We are about to do our indoor starts and the tomatoes. One thing you can do about tomatoes is you can clone tomatoes. You can take cuttings from the tomatoes very early on and take one, like my German Queen outside. I've got one big one, and I'm going to take some cuttings of it probably in the next 2 weeks, start them inside under that light, and in a very short period of time, I'll probably have 4 German Queens. Of course, I have some more seed starters I'm working on getting together, but yeah. So remember, your liquid nutrients, synthetics, they feed the plant right now, and it's very easy to overdo. So whatever the box says, obviously these companies we're in a free market, we're in a we're in a society where more is better. So they want to sell more. So they want you to use the most that you can use. I would suggest going half strength on any liquid nutrients that you have, at least half, and go from there. If your plants are just a little lackluster, then increase it to, 2/3 instead of a half. Or if you're going a quarter, move up to a half. So I usually have had pretty good success with half strength and very few issues. I could drop it to a quarter strength, and we'll see. But your organics, usually they're going to take longer to break down, so you're amending 2 weeks ahead of schedule. So if your plant, your amendments are breaking down, and you think you're on schedule, so you have to kind of keep up with it a little more for that to feed your plants, then you're 2 weeks away, approximately a week and a half to 2 weeks from feeding your plant. So if your plant's looking like it's hungry, and you grab some top dress and that Dr. Earth, and you put on there, and you're like 2 days later, your plant's like, what the crap? It's still starting to yellow and it's looking worse. It's not because you didn't do right. You just didn't do right timing-wise. So you have to time a little better on your organics. Your synthetics, you can burn the crap out of them a lot quicker, because if you overdo it or feed them too frequently, you can burn your plants. You can also, they have nutrient lockout and things when you feed the wrong pH for certain plants. Like if your tomato plants, you were using an 8 or 9 or 10 pH water, it's very alkaline. Plants aren't going to like that. They're not going to thrive. So if you're using around 6.5, they're going to be a lot better, and they're going to take that nutrients up and use it. But so your synthetics, you can overdo it and burn your plants. Your organics usually are a little slower release. So you have to mend ahead of schedule to keep your plants healthy. But that's it for today. Remember, like, subscribe, share the video. Help us. We're trying to grow our viewer base, get some information out there for everybody, and do some a little better, different type videos. So this right here wasn't just me filming me doing things. It's more talking, showing you some different type nutrients, the good, the bad, the really and the ugly, other than if you kill your plants, and then it is ugly. But we're all just trying to grow better plants, have a bigger harvest, and that's what it's about. So anyways, keep digging it, guys. We'll talk to you later. Again, this Sunday, I'm going to try to have a video out, if not sooner, but I'm going to try every other Sunday, and then either Tuesdays or Thursdays during the week, according to my work schedule. So be safe, guys. Y'all have a good one. Bye-bye.